Hello everyone, welcome again to another video. More gaming trends just keep on coming. Today we have rumors that EA is reportedly in development of a new Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic game. Now I know most of you guys may not be familiar with Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, considering it came back out in 2003. So allow me to give you a brief synopsis of what Star Wars The Old Republic is. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is a role-playing video game set in the Star Wars universe, developed by BioWare and published by LucasArts. The game was released for Xbox on July 15, 2003, and for Microsoft Windows on November 19, 2003. The story of Knights of the Old Republic takes place almost 4,000 years before the formation of the Galactic Empire, where Darth Malak, a Dark Lord of the Sith, has unleashed a Sith armada against the Republic. The player character as a Jedi must venture into the different planets in the galaxy to defeat Malak. Players choose 3 character classes: Scout, Soldier, Scoundrel, and customize their characters at the beginning of the game, and then engage in a round-based combat against enemies, which, if you ask me, I hate round-based combat. Through interacting with other characters and making plot decisions, players can learn light side and dark side points, and their alignment system will determine whether the player's character aligns with the light or dark side of the Force. The game was directed by Casey Hudson and designed by James Olin, and written by Drew Karpyshyn. LucasArts proposed developing a Star Wars game tied to Star Wars Episode II Attack of the Clones, or a game set thousands of years before the prequels. The team chose the latter as they thought they would have more creative freedom. Ada Asner and Ethan Phillips and Jennifer Hale were hired to perform voices of the game's characters, while Jeremy Soule composed the soundtrack, announced in 2000. The game was delayed several times before its release on July 2003. The game received critical acclaim upon release, and critics applauding the game's characters, story, and sound. It was nominated for numerous awards and considered one of the best video games ever made. A sequel to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2: The Sith Lords was developed by Obsidian Entertainment at BioWare's suggestion, was released in 2004. Knights of the Old Republic 2 starts 5 years after the events of the first game, and follows the story of the exile, a Jedi Knight who was exiled from the Jedi Order. During this time, the Jedi Order had been almost completely wiped out by the Sith. The game begins with the protagonist waking up from unconsciousness on an asteroid mining facility. After he or she escapes with the help of their party members, they find the person who exiled them 10 years ago, who sends the protagonist on a mission to seek out the remaining Jedi and fight against the Sith. The game's critical reception upon its release was generally positive. Praise was given to the story, characters, and writing, which were noted to be more great than the original Knights of the Old Republic. Particular praise was given to one of the game's party members, Kiara, with GameSpy naming her the video game best character of 2005. However, the game received criticism for being too similar to its predecessor in terms of graphics and gameplay systems, as well as being launched in an incomplete state, which isn't uncommon for games nowadays, but I guess back then it was pretty surprising. The game was included in the book 1001 Video Games You Must Play Before You Die. Guess it was probably 900th on the list then. In 2013, Disney signed a deal with Electronic Arts, BioWare's parent company, that gave the publisher exclusive rights to Star Wars games for the indefinite future. Disney announced BioWare's games were no longer canon in 2015, and 2 years later, EA shifted its focus from single-player games to online titles. Any hope for a Knights of the Old Republic 3 game seemed to be dead in the water. But with the recent success of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and rumors that the next era of Star Wars could be kicked off by a video game, have breathed some life back into the long-neglected series. On Thursday, Cinelix reported that the wheels have been in motion of a new Knights of the Old Republic game. Not so much as a remake, but rather a sequel of sorts, wrote editor-in-chief Jordan Mason. It would be Knights of the Old Republic project that would integrate elements from the first 2 games in order to bring certain things into the current Star Wars canon. Not necessarily a remake, so much as a reimaging, he stated. Knights of the Old Republic 3 has not yet been confirmed by EA, and as such does not have a release window. Rumors have been dating back as far as to 2016 have claimed the game was in development, but many of them are a little fishy. Mason reported in 2016 that EA planned to release another Knights of the Old Republic game, according to anonymous sources, but that it was on the back burner, and after publisher was disappointed about how the release of the 2015 Star Wars Battlefront and the way it was received. In 2017, Kotaku debunked a rumor later confirming that while BioWare had created a prototype of a new Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic game, it was but never greenlit by EA and not actively under development. Most recently, Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy told MTV News that Disney has something in store for Knights of the Old Republic fans. Most people usually reference the time when she said, "Yes, we are developing something to look at. Right now, I have no idea where things might fall, but we have to be careful that there is a cadence to Star Wars and that it doesn't start to feel like too much." There is no meaning in those words currently, but that story will continue eventually, and it might even be in the form of a Knights of the Old Republic 3 game, or a long-rumored live-action movie which fans would really be looking forward to. And who knows, it could even be a series. But rumors have fans thinking that the Knights of the Old Republic 3 is shaping up to be a sequel. Because of the way the Knights of the Old Republic 2 ended, it does leave room for the story to continue. Obsidian's Chris Avellone began developing a pitch for Knights of the Old Republic 3 that never made it to screens because of the internal politics. "We did start working on a third game pitch because we always imagined the trilogy," he told VG 24/7. "Even when trying to work on the second game, we tried to foreshadow that Darth Revan was doing something in the second game and he wasn't just ruthlessly and mindlessly blowing everything up. He actually had a larger plan because there was some greater manipulation and threat going on. Playing as former Jedi Knight exiled from the Jedi Order, you defeat and kill Darth Treya, a Sith Lord disguised as an ally throughout the game. The final showdown would have taken place on Malachor 5, a ruined planet with ties to ancient Sith academies. The protagonist would have had the choice of destroying the planet and traveling into the unknown regions in search of Darth Revan, or remaining on Malachor 5 as a new Dark Lord of the Sith. Avellone said his idea for Knights of the Old Republic 3 involved players tracking down Revan and encountering even more deadly Sith Lords. This suggests that the light side ending of Knights of the Old Republic 2 is canon, if gamers would still be playing as the exile. The third game involved you as the player character following where Revan went, and then taking the battle to the really ancient Sith Lords, who are far more terrifying than the Darth Lords that show up. The developer said these guys would just be monsters. These would have a level of power that would be considerable, but at the same time, you'd be able to dig up more into their psychologies and their personalities, their history, and even how they dealt with the player, how they talked with the player, the different powers they cultivated and developed, and for some of them, they considered ancients. So they're not just a ruling solar system, but swaths of the galaxy. If the Knights of the Old Republic 3 ever does happen, it'll probably be a lot different from what Avellone had in mind, because his pitch was, I'm sure, way before, way during when the Knights of the Old Republic 2 was finished. So that's a story that could be long thrown away, and probably it's going to be something entirely, most likely different from what he said. Forbes recently said, "As much as I would like to see a full-on Knights of the Old Republic remake, I think there are a lot of hurdles to making this happen, both on the game production side with what's currently going on with EA, but also about the Disney's greenlighting this entire chunk of story to become a new era canon. At the same time, potentially considering a live-action version of the main Knights of the Old Republic storyline. It's just a lot to think about, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think there's a reason it's taken 17 years for a Knights of the Old Republic remake to be considered again, and it ain't going to be easy to pull off," said Forbes. I think they do make a lot of key points, considering they probably want to make a sequel to the Jedi Fallen Order, and they have a lot of series and stuff to think about with the Obi-Wan series, and maybe that new Star Wars movie series in the future. So I doubt they would actually have a time to consider making a Knights of the Old Republic game and making it canon, as well as a live-action series. That's kind of too much to put on Disney, even though they're a big company. There's a lot of Star Wars stuff happening right now, and how could I even forget The Mandalorian? So I doubt we're going to be seeing a Knights of the Old Republic game anytime soon. To be honest, I never actually played Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, but I heard a lot of good things about it. The only one thing, though, I don't like about it is the play style. It's like that Final Fantasy, before Final Fantasy 13, I don't like that play style. You hit the attack button and they just attack for you. That doesn't really intrigue me as much. If they do, however, make a Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic game, a new one, hopefully they do what Final Fantasy did in Final Fantasy 15, where they changed it to average attacking style, and they keep everything intact. They just make the playstyle better to fit towards the new game systems like the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. I think they do know that. I think they probably know it'll get more people immersed in it, and yeah, most likely it'll benefit. But who am I to say that? I'm not like the old fans. I don't have past history with the game. I'm sure old fans of the series like the nostalgia of the old play, so maybe that's what they'll go with. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed watching it, thank you a ton. I make daily content, so stay tuned for something good tomorrow. And yeah, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Till next time.